Landreth Grau. Thank you for joining me today to talk about Blue Ocean Strategy here at the Tandy Center for Executive Leadership. I wanted you to share with us today, as an executive leader, as a business manager, as an owner of my own company, what am I going to get out of your Blue Ocean Strategy class?
Well, thank you for having me. Actually, Blue Ocean Strategy is, it's a management book. It's actually a best-selling management book, and it's got some really interesting concepts in here. Throughout the last few years, over the course of, management research, we have some really good tools out there that have helped us analyze industries. Porter's Five Forces obviously is a really good one, and it's a very effective model at analyzing an industry as it is. But we know now that technology changes so quickly. Consumers are, now have so many more choices. There's just an explosion of information out there that an industry doesn't stand still. And so while these are very effective, we do need to look to some new models, and that's really what Blue Ocean Strategy is all about. Some of the things that are outlined in here make intuitive sense. The authors have just really put it together and packaged it really quite nicely. Some of the things in here that you would learn about is how to look at your industry, how to look for different types of opportunities out there, things that you may not really think about, but they're out there, and maybe you just need to look at them in a different way, make different types of connections. One of the most intriguing for me as a marketing professor is how you look at consumers. Typically we've looked at consumers and the consumer behavior in a very segmented way, like we are going to look at our demographics, we'll look at psychographics, we'll look at some usage behavior, that type of thing, and that works. This, though, looks at it a different way. It also looks at the customers who are almost on that line of leaving you, and so if you talk to them and ask them the right questions, maybe you can get them back. It also looks at customers that maybe you didn't even look for it before. Maybe you just haven't even considered. They haven't even thought of a reason to buy your product. And they also look at, quite honestly, customers that don't like you anymore. And nobody wants to talk to people that don't like them, but you can really get some keen insights from talking to consumers that, for whatever reason have left your business. One of the great things about that is it does focus on talking to your consumers, not so much, not just about all the different things that we can do now, online surveys, focus groups, anything that you can do with digital insights, social media monitoring, but it really gets down to, let's sit down and have a conversation with your customer. That face-to-face interaction, that relationship building, asking them how you can do things differently. Because really, if you ask your happy customers what they want, they're going to basically say, well, we want more of this, but we want to pay less for it. Well, that's great. That's not a real usable insight most days. And so that is really one of the things that I really like the most. The end of the book goes into some great detail, which I think is very useful for a manager, about how to implement this. This is a huge change. It's something that is a lot different than people are really used to thinking about, and you need those tools. You need to be able to go into your company, whether it's big, medium, or small, and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and really deal with change and change management. I think the last 3 chapters in this book really give some good insights on that too.
Excellent. Valuable information about Blue Ocean Strategy. One of the things that I found interesting when I looked at the research that Maubourne and Kim did was the differences in the companies that they looked at, looking at new companies that have come into the marketplace, like Casella Wine Industries, Yellowtail Wine, and looking at Cirque du Soleil and how they changed over 50 years. And then looking at the Gillette company, when you think about how Gillette has changed over the last 70 years, and they defined those as Blue Ocean strategies. So, as a new business owner, maybe I'm bringing in something to the marketplace that's already out there. How do I attract new customers, and how do I go to the uncontested market space?
Yeah, I think that's, that you bring up really good points. I think that is one of the key things that you can learn out of here. It's just, and I've taught it to different students. I've taught it to undergrads, to graduates, to executives. And the really interesting thing is, after reading it, I've had, a lot of people come back and say, that really did open up my eyes in terms of the way I can look at things. And now I look around and I see blue oceans everywhere. And I think, just looking at things a little bit differently a lot of times really do open up ideas. And so even if you are a new company and you do have something that's currently in the marketplace, this could definitely give you some ideas on where to go next. I think the other interesting part about the research that's laid out in the book is that you're always having to create blue oceans. And, in other words, you're constantly having to innovate. And, just because you have a great product, you can't really rest on your laurels. I think, although it's not talked about in the book, I think Apple, some of the things that Apple has done is great in terms of blue ocean. I mean, they've had a great computer, in the 80s, they weren't doing so well. They came back. They're a cutting edge technological company. They really came back on the iPod, but didn't stop there. They looked at the iPod, then they added the iTunes, and so now you've got this great business package. Again, not resting on that, they were able to see the importance of smartphones, went to the iPhone, one of the best-selling products out there, constantly innovating on that, and now I've gone to the iPad, and we don't really know what's going to go on with that. But if you look at the trajectory, it has sold more quicker than any of those two previous iterations. And so you can see just in one company, over really the span of 10 years, they just keep creating blue oceans. The problem is technology is going so quickly. Information is increasing so quickly that honestly, that time between blue oceans is going to shorten. And so to me, anything that a manager can do to get the right tools, to start thinking smartly, to start thinking about innovation, I think you're going to be able to be in a good position to be one of those companies that are going to be able to innovate pretty quickly.
Excellent. And it's about innovation and value strategy, meeting the marketplace needs. So excellent insight. Thank you so much for sharing about Blue Ocean Strategy.
Appreciate it.
We're very
My pleasure.
about your course.
Thank you.
Dr. Landreth Grau, thank you so much for joining me to talk about Blue Ocean Strategy. We're really excited about offering this class at the Tandy Center for Executive Leadership. Tell me a little bit about the course itself.
Okay.
The book is excellent. Maubourne and Kim have touched on strategies and innovation. But as a leader, as a business owner, tell me what I'm going to get out of your class. What are we going to do in the course?
Okay. First of all, we start off really talking to each other, individual, finding out what everybody's doing, what their issues are, what they're hoping to learn from the class. And really that, for me at least, sets the tone for the class, because if there's a lot of people from one company, then we're going to try and focus on that particular industry. Typically you'll have a nice eclectic mix, which makes for a much, a lot of times a much richer discussion, because you can see, well, what works in manufacturing, oh, well, that doesn't work in computers, but this over here works for oil and gas. So that's the first thing that we do. We actually spend the first part of the class really going over the concepts, because even if you've read the book, sometimes you don't remember all the details, but so we do spend a good amount of time, setting up the frameworks, talking about why this is important, talking about the tools, all of the different tools that are outlined here and how you can actually go about using them. And then we spend a good amount of time going through each of the issues about, how to look across market space, how to deal with customers, this new strategic plan, how to deal with pricing. Within that, we spend some time with small group discussion, we do some cases, we just really adding some things in addition to the book that really help clarify some of the points. And so that's really how we spend most of our morning. In the afternoon, for the first day, we get into much more about the implementation, because at the end of the day, where the managers are different than somebody who's an undergrad, they're looking at the concepts and they think that's great. A manager needs to know, all right, great, I love it, how do I do it? And so we spend the afternoon talking about how to actually do it. And we go through some exercises about, what are some of those impediments to change? What are the roadblocks that you're going to have to overcome? And it almost becomes, again, depending on the class size, it almost becomes almost a counseling session. Each person in there starts giving ideas to the rest of the group about, well, when we did this, this is what worked for us. And so hopefully at the end of the day, the people that are in that first day walk away with not only a very rich and deeper understanding of the concepts in Blue Ocean, but also a really good idea and maybe a toolkit, if you will, of how to go about implementing that at their particular company. What we are going to be looking at, because we've had some feedback regarding this, is a lot of people want to get their hands dirty. They want to kind of do a test run before they actually go to their managers, their CEOs, and say, hey, we've got this great idea, this is what we want to do. So we're looking at adding a second day that would, basically you would have to have that first day as a prereq, but the second day would really be about simulation. There's some great tools out there where you can run an online simulation where, teams are working in small groups. one that I've used in the past deals with the gaming industry, and quite honestly, you don't even have to know enough a lot about the gaming industry to do well in this. You're applying the principles. It's set up so that you're able to see how everything really works together, because I know a lot of times in marketing we think of, well, we're in charge of the sale and the customer and that type of thing. And you don't really see directly how manufacturing and pricing and just the whole business model gets sort of implemented in there. And so I think, at least in my experience, it's been a good exercise so that you can see what works. And also too, it's a nice space in that you can fail and nothing's going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, it's nice, it's safe. It's definitely a good learning environment. And as we go through the simulation, we stop, we have debriefs, we talk about what we learned, what we can do differently. And it's pretty fast paced. That day is completely hands-on. There's not a lot of lecture with the exception of debrief. It's really about those teams meeting with each other, making decisions, hashing it out, putting it into the computer, making the run, getting a debrief, and we go through, several rounds, and at the end, have a little bit of time to share what we've learned.
Excellent. It sounds like a great opportunity for action learning and even to take things back for experiential learning in the organization in the business model. So thank you so much for bringing that to
my pleasure,
and for offering that course.
Okay, thank you.